Okay, guys, we'll go ahead and get started. Like I said, I apologize for running a little bit late. I had to make a couple of edits to my presentation. I was advised to add a slide to it that for when you see the presentation, you'll know why. If you read the email I sent out yesterday, what we're going to go over tonight is somewhat controversial, and it's probably the most controversial thing I've ever done. It's something I've been looking into for a little while. I've known about it for a long time, but I've just started looking into it here recently as a method that we may be able to capitalize on as online marketers. It's like I said, it's something that most people won't talk about. There's been a couple of products that's been released that's talked about it somewhat, but not in the method that I'll be talking about tonight. Just to give you a little heads up, with the inspiration for all this actually came from a couple of WSOs that James Runoff, I think that's how you pronounce his name, released recently, and it got me to thinking about it. And in his WSOs, he didn't really go into too much detail, and in fact, he went opposite ends of the spectrum than what we'll be talking about tonight. But I got to thinking about it that there's an avenue for us as online marketers to be able to capitalize on this. I wanted to present it to you guys tonight and let you form your own opinions. And like I said, it's something totally brand new to most of you. Most of you may not have ever even heard of what we're going to talk about tonight, but this is definitely real. It's definitely out there. And if you know how to access it, you can get right in it and you can participate right along with the rest of them. So that being said, let's go ahead and get the presentation loaded up. And I loaded it up into the software here, the webinar software, so hopefully it didn't skew it too bad. Of course, there's no diagrams in it to start with. And I got to say that the presentation is not complete. I worked on it quite a bit this weekend, but I didn't get it completely finished. And I probably will flesh this out into a full product for you guys at some point. But what I'll give you tonight is a brief rundown. Like I said, I can't go through every little nuance of it tonight, but what I wanted to show you tonight is just a good brief introduction to give you an idea of what's out there and what's available. I'll put the chat over here on the side too as well, so if you got any comments during the presentation, you can ask questions and I'll try to keep up with them. But like I said, this is something that's totally brand new to most people. Most people don't know about it at all. I've known about it for several years since I've been involved in network marketing and internet marketing since 1994. I've known about this for a long time, but never have really investigated it too much until recently. Like I said, when I bought a couple of WSOs that piqued my interest into looking into it a little bit further. But before we get started, I know Thomas is new here tonight, and there may be another or two in here new. Just so you guys know, there's nothing for sale here tonight. I'm not going to try to pitch you on anything. This is all just a training webinar, and I'll give you a chance to ask questions. You can ask questions during the presentation, and I'll try to keep up with them. And after the presentation, you can ask any questions you want, either on the presentation itself or on anything else that you might be having problems with or need answers to. And I'll do my best to give you an answers right here on the spot if I can. Can't say that I'm going to answer every question. I'm not the world's genius or nothing, but I'll do the best I can. But that being said, let's go ahead and get started with our presentation. And like I said, this is something that most people won't talk about at all. The little information you do find out about it it's very sketchy, very limited. And what I wanted to give you guys tonight is a brief primer on it. And like I said, this presentation is not complete. I've worked on it quite a bit and got the bulk of what I wanted to get through to you guys tonight in this short time we have to give you, enough to whet your appetite on it, I guess. And like I said, later on, I'll probably flesh this out into a full product later that I'll make available to you guys later. But for now, like I said, I just wanted to give you guys something new to think about and let you make your own judgment if it's something you want to be involved in or not. So what we're going to talk about tonight is the internet's best kept secret. There's a dark side to the web that no one talks about, and it's actually always existed. Very few people participate in it because most people just want to use the internet for their common uses, checking email, listening to songs, watching videos, doing their Facebook thing, doing email, like I said, that type of stuff. But there exists another side of the internet, and it's actually been around a long time before the internet we have now. It's just was in a different form. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight is the other side of the internet that you may not know even existed. Now, before we get started, I got to tell you that this presentation you're about to see is not a recommendation of a plan of action. This is the slide I had to add guys. I cannot and do not endorse your participation in anything shown in this presentation tonight. It's all left solely up to you if this is something you want to participate in or not. I cannot stress that enough. This is all your own best judgment if it's something you want to get involved in or not. Well, before we get started, I'll give you a little bit of history about the internet and how the internet came about. Before there were domain names, websites, and search engines, people used to network computers by daisy chaining computers by specially made cables. Now, there were several different ways of doing that, and most of the time it was done through the ports that were on the back of a computer, either the serial ports or the parallel ports, which most of you may know a parallel port as the printer port. But there were cables that were made that you could connect one computer to the next and then connect that one to the next one, and then you'd have a whole room of computers that were connected that could share information with each other. That was the original way of networking computers back in the old days before there was such thing as phone lines and the actual digital lines we enjoy now. And of course, the government had a more sophisticated way of networking computers using phone lines to carry data between connected computers called the ARPANET. But actually, before it became the ARPANET in 1969, it was first called the Intergalactic Computer Network in 1963. That was what the internet was first called, was the Intergalactic Computer Network. Not a lot of people know that. A lot of people recognize the name ARPANET, but actually in 1963, that's what it was called. The internet as we know it now didn't exist until 1974. And actually, the internet that we have now didn't even exist in 1974. It was way, way, way primitive to what we have now. And the public wasn't even allowed to access it until the early 1990s. And that's when it became super popular in the 1994 to 1995 ranges, when CompuServe and some of the other ones came online that allowed you to connect to the internet through their services. And really, they didn't, again, even in 1994, they didn't have the services that we have now. There was no YouTube or anything like that. It was really just pretty much all text based. A lot of the internet back in the 1994-95 range was done through the use of Usenet, which is news groups is what a lot of people call them, but the official word is Usenet. And basically what that was like your forums that you would go to on the internet now, the websites that you go to that are forums, they were places where you could post messages that you could download those messages and you could read them through special programs called news readers. But before that, people came along, people could connect and network their computers through what was called bulletin board systems that used modems and phone lines. Now that was before we were allowed to get on the internet. People were using software that would allow people to dial into a central location and they could connect to each other again. And most of the time it was done through either a single connection or sometimes bulletin boards, if they were, profitable enough and could afford it, they had multiple phone lines. And sometimes they would have actual chat features in them, but most of the time it was still text based, and there was some graphics back then, but it was the primitive ANSI based graphics. There wasn't nothing like we have now. There was no Netscape or Internet Explorer or Firefox or anything like that back then. But that's how people would connect before we were allowed to get on the internet. Then after the launch of the internet, bulletin board systems pretty much all died out. but they were still used by select individuals that didn't want to be on a publicly accessible network. In other words, the diehards, the people that didn't want to be on a public network, still used the bulletin boards to connect with each other, and that's how they, transferred information amongst each other and shared files and such, because they didn't want to be on a public network. Along about 1999, peer-to-peer networking programs were coded that allow people to share on the public internet, to share files anonymously or semi-anonymously. It was still, it wasn't totally anonymous in that, it could be traced. You could track it back down to who was actually sharing the files. But, there were some programs that came out in the pre-2000 that allowed people to share files amongst each other and not actually have to use the old text-based Usenet or news groups. Some of the most popular ones that you may remember from back then, if you were involved in the internet back in then, was Napster was the most popular one. Actually, probably the first one that came out and the one that got the most notoriety because of all the lawsuits it incurred later on. But Gnutella, eDonkey 2000, Kazaa, and then we still have LimeWire today. People still use LimeWire quite a bit. But these programs were specifically coded for people to connect in a peer-to-peer, in other words, a computer-to-computer connection to share files amongst each other through the internet, which would allow you to share files with somebody in another country through a direct connection. And of course, if you were around back in that time and dealing with the internet, you know that it got abused, and most of the time it was used to share MP3 files from music artists, albums, and songs, which drew the attention of the RIAA, and peer-to-peer sharing stopped being the preferred method for file sharing. In other words, when the RIAA stepped in and started watching all the transmissions and the files that were being shared, that pretty much peer-to-peer died out. Nobody would connect there and share any real information. Only the people that would connect there would be teenagers that wanted to share MP3 files, and of course the RIAA was watching that. If you all remember back in those days, Metallica made the biggest case about it in MP3 theft, and there was a lot of people that paid stiff fines for sharing some of Metallica's music back in that era. But not to be deterred, some of the hackers and programmers got together and coded a peer-to-peer like protocol that allowed them to connect to each other through encrypted connections. Now, they didn't do this necessarily to transfer MP3 files, although I'm sure some of them do that, but that wasn't their main purpose for wanting to have a peer-to-peer protocol that they could share their files with each other. They just basically wanted to be able to share their files and not be able to be tracked or to be governed by anybody, and nobody to be able to trace it back to them. So they came up with their own protocol for being able to do that, which means they had to come up with their own programs to be able to use this protocol. Okay, they named this protocol the Onion Relay Project, or Tor for short is what they call it now. They call it the Tor Project. Since this was an encrypted network, the people that participated in sharing of the information in the files called their websites onion sites. Now, the reason why they picked the name onion is because if you viewed a real life onion, you know it has layers to it that you can peel back till you finally get down into the meat of the onion, the part that's edible and worth eating. They used that analogy to the internet, that the internet is just the fluff and the glitz and the glory that everybody wants to see now, but if you wanted to get down to the real meat of things, you did go several layers deep into it to get to the real information that people wanted to share. So that's why they called it the Onion Relay Network, or Onion Relay Project, I mean. Now, these websites they set up, these Onion sites, are completely uncensored and uncontrolled by any government, so the Onion site owner can basically say or do whatever they wish on them. Being as such, there's a lot of illegal and immoral activity on some of them. it's not uncommon that once you start digging into these onion sites to see things on there that you know you would never see out in today's public. Like I said, it's totally encrypted. There's no government that monitors it, although the government does have access into it, and they do, if if they see an onion site come up, that's actively involved in some illegal activities as far as something against their country or something, they may act upon that and try to trace that back. Of course, it's extremely hard to do, but basically what you're going to see is just anything goes. I mean, it's really a lot of things on there like pornography, selling of illegal substances and drugs. There's also people on there that are involved in some of the more illegal activities, such as human trafficking and things like that. There's a lot of this slime on there, but there's also another good side to it. And even though it's hard to imagine a good side to the dark side of the internet, there's still a lot of good side to it of people that just want to share information amongst each other and not be controlled by our government or have it monitored. So even though there's quite a bit of bad, it's easy to find the bad. There's still a lot of good in there that can be found. And the good sites that you'll find are the ones that actually get listed in a directory. The ones that are really involved in the illegal and unethical things, you won't find them listed in a directory anywhere. And speaking of which, there are very few directories. There is no real Google of the onion sites, although there are several directories that operate a lot like Google, but they're not like Google in that there's millions of websites. In fact, the biggest one that I know of only has like about 400,000 sites listed in it. And like I said, most of those sites that are listed in there are people that have requested to be listed in their directory owner, in keeping with the reason behind the onion sites cannot go out and just automatically list the site into his directory. They have to be asked to be put in the directory. So if you do find a directory, now I'm not saying you won't find some of the bad sites in there, but most of the time, most of them you'll find in there are not the bad sites. Now there could be sites in there that are set up to sell products and services, and the products and services that they allow to be sold could be unethical or illegal. But for the most part, the sites that are listed in these directories are pretty much the sites that you may not see, like I said, on the Google search that you would go to now, but they are sites that you're going to see uncensored information, the information that the onion site owner wants to be made available to other onion site owners and people that connect to that network. Roy's saying, so the FTC has no access to these onion sites. Roy, the government has access. I mean, this is not something that's totally closed out. It's not something that you have to have a password to get into or a specific key or anything like that to get into it. Anybody can get access to it. It's just that it's all encrypted and there's no tracing, and they really hide the IP addresses where everything comes from. So it's really hard to trace back. But like I said, the government has super sophisticated programs and hardware well beyond what we'll ever own. So it's not totally untraceable. So if they do see any kind of terrorist action or anything like that, or anything that's really illegal, some drug cartel doing something, they're gonna trace it back and find out about it, and find out where it's coming from. So it's, even though they've done their best to try to have an encrypted network where they can share files amongst each other, there's still ways for the governments to be able to trace back where things are coming from if something is really bad enough for them to look into. Okay, so now since there's a lot of these onion site owners that want to sell goods and services from their sites, they also needed a currency to buy and sell with that was unregulated by any government as well. So that's wherein, along with this protocol that they developed so that they could share their files and information amongst each other, they also wanted to be able to sell goods and services. So they needed their own currency that wasn't traceable either, that they could just create their own economy, basically is what it was. So that's where the term cryptocurrency came from. And cryptocurrency, if you're not sure what it is, it's a digital medium of exchange of information created by complex math algorithms that cannot be duplicated or copied. Now, the beginnings of cryptocurrency started back in the pre-2000. If you were online back then, there were little projects that went on back in, I guess, 98, 99, somewhere in that range, where it was all done for a charity where they would give you a code that you ran on a program, and it would use your spare computer cycles to try to break that code. And what they were doing back then, they were trying to develop a digital currency, because when the internet first came available to allow the public, there was a group of people that got together that said, well, we need to have a digital currency that we can spend like money, that's not tied to any currency, any country's currency, that we can use just amongst people that want to make purchases and sell products and things over this internet. So they started working on a math computation to create a digital currency. But the problem was so any kind of currency you would come up with that would be a digital currency could be duplicated. So there was no way to say, just give an example here of $1, even though it's not tied to any currency at all. There was no way of saying that this $1 currency wasn't duplicatable by somebody else and that you are the actual owner of it. So that's when they started working on those math computations to come up with blockchains, these math computations that couldn't be duplicated and couldn't be cracked. And if one got cracked, well, then that code was scrapped, and they went on to another until they finally got one that couldn't be cracked, that couldn't be duplicated. And that was the beginning of cryptocurrency, was those little projects back then. And best I remember, I participated in a lot of those back then, because they had little competitions. If your computer was the one that actually broke the code, you won like $50 or $100. I forget what it was. Now, I never did win none of them. My computers never did crack any of them. But there was some sort of little competition, and the whole goal of it was they were trying to find a math algorithm that couldn't be broke or couldn't be copied. That was the whole thing. They wanted to find one that was uncrackable. So if it got cracked, they scrapped that one. They started a new one. So once they finally came up with these algorithms that worked for this, that couldn't be duplicated, and they could be assigned to somebody as unique, they were stored in what they call blocks, and these blocks are unique to each other, and they could actually, like I said, they could be actually held or stored by one individual. In other words, if you were issued a digital currency block, nobody else could copy that block, and you were the only one that had it. So by you being the only one that had it, you could assign some sort of a monetary value to it. These math computations allowed only for so many blocks to be created. Given that, if you're given a block of a math code, there's only so many computations that could come from it. So that created a rarity in the amount of blocks that could be created, which allowed people to, assign some sort of a monetary value to them by owning, those unique blocks. The more blocks you have, the less are available. It's the same principle as in everyday trading, supply and demand. If there's only so much of a supply and there's a demand for it, well, then the price is going to go up for it. Now, there are several cryptocurrencies that are available, and the first one that was ever created from the first block that they determined couldn't be broken was called the Bitcoin, and it was created in 2009. Other popular ones since then are the Litecoin, the Dogecoin, and Ripple. If you guys remember, it wasn't too long ago that Mike Filsaime was really promoting the Ripple coin. It wouldn't, I guess maybe 3 to 5 years ago, Mike was really pushing that Ripple coin. But Bitcoin is won out because it was the very first one, and it's the one that was originally created, and the original creator of it is really unknown, although there is one guy that is credited for it, but there's no official documentation that shows that he was the guy that actually created the code that became the Bitcoin. Well, this is all well and good for the Onionside owners. They had a way now where they could sell their products and services amongst each other. But the thing, And like I said, this is where most of these guys you'll hear about when they talk about Bitcoins and these onion sites. This is where most of them stop. They talk about, selling these selling these products and services for the Bitcoins amongst other. They don't give you any idea how you can actually translate this back into the real world. So the question becomes, how do you and I turn this into real cash that we can spend? Is it possible to do that? And yes, it definitely is possible to do it, and that's what we're going to talk about next, how we as ordinary online marketers can get involved in the onion sites and trading in these cryptocurrencies, and then turn those cryptocurrencies back into real cash that we can spend out in our everyday purchases out in the real world. You do this by what they call cryptocurrency exchanges. Now, by introducing a cryptocurrency exchange, you are introducing a third party that is monitoring and tracking that cryptocurrency blockchain that's being circulated around, the one that you've obtained. Now, by its nature itself, these blockchains and these cryptocurrencies all are public record. You can trace back, if you have the programs to do it, you can trace back where any Bitcoin that you ever got, or any other currencies, whichever be Litecoin or Dogecoin or any of the others, who all has owned it. A good way of making an analogy to that, some of you have probably seen on some dollar bills that Where's George website. People will write that on dollar bills, and when you get it, you're supposed to go to the Where's George website and put in that serial number for that dollar bill, where you got it, what city or state or country that you got it in. It's kind of like that in a way, except that it's all kept on the blockchains, which, like I said, to use a cryptocurrency, you have to have a digital wallet, and that digital wallet has a transaction history of where that original block that you own now, that Bitcoin or Dogecoin or Litecoin, who all has previously owned it. Now, it doesn't give their names because, again, like I said, they want this to be anonymous, so it's just a big long hash code of numbers that you can't really assign it to any one person. Of course, if you know somebody's Bitcoin address, you could associate with them, but just to look at it, you wouldn't be able to tell that it was Thomas's coin. You couldn't tell that Thomas originally owned that coin unless you just knew Thomas's Bitcode coin address. If you knew that, well, then you could recognize that it was his coin. So Coinbase was the very first one to step into the cryptocurrency world and begin exchanging these cryptocurrencies, and the only one they'll deal with is Bitcoin, by the way, into real cash. And like I said, they're the first official ones that will actually exchange currency into legal tender for the U.S. Now, I am not positive, but I have heard that they will work with the UK and Canada, but I can't say that for sure. But I do know they work with the U.S., but I've heard that they will work with the UK and Canada. I'm not positive on it, so I can't tell you that for sure. Like I said, I'm still investigating all this too myself, so the only thing I can tell you for sure is it does work for exchanging it for legal tender here in the U.S. The Coinbase manages Bitcoin to U.S. dollars for exchanges for lots of well-known companies such as Overstock.com just recently announced that they'll accept Bitcoin. Namecheap has accepted Bitcoin for a long time. Tiger Direct, one of the largest computer suppliers in the United States, will accept Bitcoin. And then the best one of all, and this is the one that really pertains to us and how we can tie this into how we can actually spend our Bitcoin that we would collect, is egifter.com. Now, eGifter allows you, through an exchange with Coinbase, for you to purchase prepaid gift cards at hundreds of nationally known retailers. You can go to egifter.com and you can buy gift cards for most all of the major restaurants and most of the major chain department stores. Just about anybody that sells a gift card, eGifter will exchange Bitcoin to purchase those cards. And how they do this through an exchange with Coinbase. They use Coinbase as their exchange to be able to turn those into a monetary value that you can buy those cards. And of course, by being able to buy those gift cards means you can take that gift card down to Home Depot and you can buy the lumber you need to build the deck out on your house or whatever you need to do with it. And like I said, Home Depot is just an example. Like I said, there's hundreds of places that you can exchange those Bitcoins for gift cards. Okay, so the question is, how do you get started with this? Now, I told you from the very beginning that, this is really a side of the internet that not many people talk about, although it's, easily for anybody to access it and get started in it. You kind of wonder when you first look at, well, what could I do here? I mean, I don't want to sell these illegal things or get into these unethical things like other people are doing. So how could I, as an ordinary person who wants to be on the up and up, get involved with this and do anything with it? Okay, so here's the steps that you would first have to go through to even be set up to do anything with it to start with. You'd first have to open a Coinbase account and get bank verified. Then you need to open an account with Cryptsy so that you can accept multiple cryptocurrencies. Now, Cryptsy is another exchange, but they will accept all the other currencies as well. They will accept the Litecoin, the Dogecoin, and the Ripple, and all the others. There's several others, but those are the major ones. They will take all of the other cryptocurrencies and they will exchange them for Bitcoin, which once you get Bitcoin, you can exchange that Bitcoin over Coinbase. So that's why you'd have to have those two exchange accounts. Cryptsy to be able to accept the multiple varieties you're going to run across out on the onion sites and buying and selling, because some people only want to deal in one type of coin. They don't want to deal in Bitcoin or don't want to deal in Litecoin. Or, they got specific ones, so you would need an account with Cryptsy that can take several of them. And of course, you need to install a web server on your computer, and there's lots of ways of doing that. And in fact, when I write this up, guys, I'll give you, I'm just going through the steps here tonight. I can't go into exact detail on how to do all this in this little bit of time we have here together. But when I write this all up, I'll give you the exact instructions on how to get most of this done. Of course, like I said, a lot of it, it may be more technical than you can handle, and you may have to get somebody to do parts of it for you. But the next step, like I said, you need to install a web server on your computer. And like I said, there are several of those available that you can run on your own personal computer. The next thing you need to do is install the Tor protocol, which is actually the program that will let you, once you fire up that web server and you get online, connect to the Tor relay and tell everybody that you have an Onion site that's available on the Onion network. And of course, like I said, the next thing you need to create the Onion site for whatever products or services that you're wanting to sell, or any information that you're wanting to exchange. It may be that you don't want to sell anything. It may be that you just do want to exchange information with other people. But you just create a normal website like you would for the regular internet, except it's used through this special browser and that Tor protocol to encrypt it, so it becomes an Onion site at that point. Then you want to find Onion directories that you can get your Onion site listed. Now you would contact these directories and ask that they include your Onion site into their directory, and they will give you, basically the same thing like you would get with Google. You can use certain keywords and a description of your site, and then of course the link. Now once you install the web server and that Tor protocol program, your web server that you start up will be assigned a unique name that's only yours. And there are no name servers available right now, so you can't pick no fancy names. Although I have heard, and I don't know how it's done yet, but I have heard that you can go in to the settings on your web server and get it to give a specific name, so that you could have somewhat of a recognizable name that people would have to type in to get to your Onion site. But for the most part, you're assigned what we would call a domain name, an Onion site name. And then optionally, you could buy advertising on these directories to get more traffic. If you had something that you were wanting to sell, you could actually buy advertising on these sites, and it's really cheap. And again, they work in the cryptocurrency, so you would need to have cryptocurrencies to work with to be able to pay for this advertising. And of course, the next step is you want to collect the crypto coins. And then depending on which ones you have, if they're Bitcoins, you could just go to Coinbase directly and use them, or go to eGifter and use them directly. Or if you did collect some of the other ones, you would need to go through Cryptsy to convert them to the Bitcoins, and then go the extra step of going to either Coinbase or eGifter to buy the gift cards or to cash out for cash, whichever one you wanted to do with them. Okay, so the next question you're probably asking is, what can you sell and to who? And when you, like I said, when you get to looking into these onion sites, you really wonder, well, what could you sell and how could you, who would be interested? What's my target audience? Well, first thing you want to do is you want to think about who your viewing audience is. These are people that want to remain anonymous and live off the grid of that the public uses. They don't want to be out on the public, that being found in Google. They want to be people that are anonymous and just exchange information amongst their friends and the others that are in their collective groups. And most of the time, customers that would find you would never be in the directories. They are people that are just looking for services that they can buy themselves, and they don't want to be listed. Now, again, you may find, listings in directories for people that have onion sites that do want to buy and sell and trade with others. That's common as well. But for the most part, your customers are going to be people that don't want to be found, and they're just looking for a way of using digital currency to buy what they need. So the most common amongst that, and this is a big hint for you guys if this is something you're really looking into, are the survivalists and the doomsday preppers. These are the people that are most likely to want to live off the grid, that want to use a totally encrypted, uncontrolled, and unmonitored network that uses a digital currency that can't be traced and that is not backed by any country's currency. These are the people that would buy from you if you could put out products that they're looking for, that would buy from you all day long and not think a thing about sending you their Bitcoins or their Litecoins or whatever cryptocurrency they're using. And there is a huge market for these people out on these onion networks. In fact, I would guess 25 to 30% of the sites that you're going to find are going to be involved in this niche. That is how huge this niche is in these onion networks. So how you could get products that you can make for them. There's an easy way of doing it. You can go to Instructables.com. That's a website that's available on the internet, and you can find project plans for things that these people would want. There are tons and tons of digital instructions over for little projects that you can make. A good example, one I seen just yesterday, is using the Altoids. You've all seen the little Altoids candies at the cash registers thing. They're in the little tins. There's a project over on Instructables right now where you can turn that Altoids can into a one-day survival kit. You could take and use that PDF. That you can. That's something else I forgot to tell you. Over on Instructables.com, you can actually download the project plans into a PDF. I think you might have to have a paid account with them to be able to download the PDF. I'm not positive, but even if you can't, even if you don't want to do that, you can still print it out to your printer. But you can take that Altoid can and that project plan, you can create that one-day survival kit, and you can put up an onion site selling that one-day survival kit, and I guarantee you'd sell them like hotcakes. All you got to do is get the word out that you have them, and the doomsday preppers would be all over it wanting to buy them. Yep, that is the actual last slide. Like I said, this is not a complete presentation. I've just been working on this for the last 3 or 4 days, and I've worked on it again some more this weekend, but this presentation is not complete. But I just wanted to give you guys a good example of this internet that's out there that you may not know was accessible, and what you can do with it. Now, this is just one example of creating products and services for the doomsday preppers and the survivalists. There are other groups just like that, that want to remain anonymous, that still want to live off the grid and use a cryptocurrency something that's not traceable back to, any country's currency that would buy products and services from you. And depending on your ethics, I mean, you may want to get into some of the other areas. Like I said, I cannot endorse any of that. If you want to get into any of that, I can't even tell you for sure that this right here will work for you, because like I said, all I know is that this is a big, huge niche there, and that people will spend money there, and the money they spend is the cryptocurrency. So this is just food for thought for you guys. Like I said, I'll write this when I have time over the next few days, next week or so. I'll write up the complete instructions for this and give you guys, all the links and everything that you would need. But I just want to go over this tonight to show you guys something that not many people will talk about. I mean, this does exist. It's been around. It's been around since, I guess, 2005 or so. About the time when they were first working on the Bitcoin, getting it developed, this is when this all came about. And it's been going on 9 years, almost 10 years now. So, there's quite a bit of activity out there that, you may not have ever been aware of. Roy's asking, what is the exchange rate between cryptocurrencies and US dollar? It's kind of, to answer that question, Roy, it's kind of like dealing in the stock market, wherein you might buy stock in Amazon today and it costs $20, but then tomorrow it goes up to $100, and then the next day it might go down to $16. So it's kind of volatile and goes up and down. When Bitcoin first came out, it was valued at like $2 per coin, and then it got up to, I think, $20, and then in 2013, when some of the major retailers on the internet like Overstock.com and Namecheap and some others, or several others that take Bitcoin, when they started accepting Bitcoins, the value shot way up. In fact, in December, the value of a Bitcoin shot up to $1,000. It's what the US dollar value of a Bitcoin was $1,000. Now it's settled down since then. I think that the price now is just over $600, and it's going to go up and down from that, just like the stock market would. But it will eventually, because there's only a limited amount of the Bitcoins that are going to be available, they will eventually settle out to an average price. And once they get near that limit of all of them being created, I think there's going to be 21 million Bitcoins is all that will ever exist. Once that final 21 million coins are created, well, then the value is going to go way up for them, and it'll become a currency, a lot like finding gold. How there's limited amounts of gold that can be had in the world. It'll turn out to be like that. The price will just start going up from there instead of fluctuating like it does now. Yeah, Roy, you could play it like stocks, but I don't recommend that. I don't recommend anybody investing real dollars into a digital currency like this, because you never know what's going to happen with it. But then on the flip side, if you think about it, in 1998 and 99, when PayPal first came up, and people didn't have any faith in PayPal either, that it was ever going to work. And in fact, PayPal had to pay people to get accounts with them. I don't know if you guys remember that or not. PayPal would pay you $5 to get an account with them. So, it's kind of like along that lines. There's a lot of skepticism in digital currency right now, but then there is a lot of people that are really backing it and have full faith in it that it's really going to work. Like I said, by the evidence of it being, some of the major retailers now that are accepting the Bitcoin. I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of Bitcoins that are going to be publicly accepted. The closest ones that might possibly make it to the point Bitcoin might be the Litecoin and the Dogecoin. But some of the other ones, there's lots of other ones available out there. And that's why I recommended the Cryptsy account, because Cryptsy will exchange all of them for the Bitcoin. But I think that the Litecoin and the Dogecoin are probably going to be the next two that actually make it to the point that Bitcoin is at right now. Bruno said, didn't Bitcoin have a scandal, RE theft, fraud, and that's what the Bitcoin dropped in value? There was actually two things that caused it, and you're talking about just recently. There was a guy in Florida that was using Bitcoin for money laundering. and the FBI got involved in it and traced it back to the guy in Florida that was doing it, and that was um, what came up in the news recently. And then the thing that caused the biggest drop in the Bitcoin price was a denial of service attack on the first exchange that there ever was. Now, like I said, Coinbase is the biggest one that everybody knows about. Well, maybe not everybody knows about, but the ones that the major retailers will deal with because they have an actual merchant system set up. But there's another coin exchange that went through a massive denial of service attack, and it lasted for several days, and it just pretty much bottomed out the price of the Bitcoin because people couldn't exchange, couldn't buy and sell for that during that time when they were going through a denial of service attack. Since then, the exchanges have all beefed up their security in their networks, and these denial of service attacks, they've hit everything here recently. I mean, if you guys remember back in February and March, they were hitting all the autoresponder services. They were hitting some of the online stores, the what's that shoes, Zaxxas shoes or whatever their name is, Zappos. They were hitting Zappos and all these other major retailers on the internet to denial of services. So since that happened to them, they, like I said, they've taken measures to thwart that and keep that from ever happening again. But what you are referencing too, though, there was a case, and it's not been that long ago, where that guy was actually money laundering in Florida, and the FTC and the FBI got involved, and there was actually an arrest made. Or says, I had a chance to invest in Jerry's Home Centers at 10 cents per stock I laughed. His stock is worth $125 now. Oh yeah, I remember that too. I remember when Yahoo first opened stock, and I laughed at it then. It was like 50 cents a share then, and I laughed at it and said, well, that'll never be worth nothing. And of course, you've seen what happened with Yahoo. And of course, Google's the same way. Uh, in fact, when Google first came along, I laughed at that. I thought, what a stupid name for a search engine. And then it's a stupid looking website too, nothing on it. But you all see what's happened with Google. And of course, again, relate this back to PayPal. I mean, talking about, actual currency exchange, nobody had faith in PayPal at all back in 1999. And that's why they were having to pay people to open accounts with them. And of course, it got abused. I mean, there were a lot of people that signed up multiple accounts, abused PayPal to get that $5 from them. But look where PayPal is now. I mean, they are the major currency exchange now in the world. So it won't take long for a couple more of these. And there is rumor that again, this is all rumor, and I really shouldn't even be saying it because I don't know if there's any real truth to it. It's just a rumor. But there is rumor that Amazon is going to start accepting a cryptocurrency in the near future. Now, they're not saying which one, but I am betting it's probably going to be the Bitcoin. If Amazon gets to where they accept the Bitcoin or any cryptocurrency, you're going to see cryptocurrency go skyrocket in price. Okay, well, that was the presentation I had for you guys. Took a little longer than I meant for it to take, but and like I said, it was just a brief introduction, intro into this world. There's a lot more to it. Like I said, it's not your everyday internet that you want your kids on at all. If you catch your kids on it, you better be wondering what they're into, because there's a reason why they're on there. If you catch your teenager over on the Onion Network, you want to find out why he's there. But it is an interesting side of the internet to explore. Like I said, if when I write all this up and I do the replay, I'll give you guys some links if you want to, look into this and just, experiment around with it and, see what's out there. I'll give you some links to some directories that you can go and you can do some searches. I'll give you the link to the biggest one that I know of, that I think it's called DuckDuckGo is the name of this directory. But it's really an interesting thing to check into. And like I said, it's wide open right now. There's very little going on in there as far as marketing, other than, like I said, a lot of people, marketing their illegal and unethical services and products to each other. But there's a whole lot of people in there that just want to share information, that want to live sort of off the grid, that's unmonitored and encrypted, and people can't eavesdrop on them. So there's a lot of room for people like us that want to get in there and sell honest, real products and services, to connect with those people. And all it takes is, just finding out what they want and getting your site up and getting listed in one of those directories where they can find you. And maybe if you start doing well with it, you might want to invest in some of the advertise on some of these directories. That's totally optional. You could start out totally for free because none of this costs anything at all. Even opening up the Coinbase account doesn't cost you anything to do that. Which is, it would be like selling Bibles in a drug-infested neighborhood, these onion sites. Well, no, not really. Like I said, there's a huge chunk of it, that you probably would never be involved in or want to see. I mean, if you think about it, we all know pornography's out there. We all know it's easy to find pornography, but most of us don't want to go there, so we avoid those sites. It would be the same thing with these onion sites. They're out there. There's some of them that you don't want to go to. There's some of them, they're just filled with, unethical and hate crimes and things like that, and talk about, other groups, in a derogatory way. You just avoid things like that and look for the good part of the Onion network. And like I said, you're going to find most of that in the directories, because the ones that are really prejudiced and unethical and into illegal activities, they don't want to be listed in a directory. They only want their select group of people to know where their address is, so that they can only connect with the people that are like-minded. So, using a directory, you're going to find the better sites that way. I'm not saying they're going to all be clean and wholesome, because there's still going to be some on there that, you're going to be questionable, that how can they allow this type of thing, which, like I said, again, this is all point-to-point computers that are connected to a protocol server, so there's no monitoring of it all. You can do anything you want on those websites. Okay, well, that was our presentation for tonight. Do you guys have any questions on that or any other questions? It's been about 2 weeks since we've had one of these webinars now, and I'll be honest with you guys, I didn't get a chance to check the email questions. Last week, if you remember, the week before when we did have one of these webinars, I told you I had a week coming up where I was going to have to work with all those computers at the school, get them 300 and some laptops set up, so I didn't have a chance to go through the emails for the questions for the webinars at all, so I'm sure there's some that I will try to get to for the next one. Let me ask you, how many of you, knowing what little bit you know about onion sites now, might be willing to look into them and see if there's something you could market there? Is there anybody in that's even thinking about maybe checking into it? One of the biggest things you guys need to catch on to is the idea behind the cryptocurrencies themselves. Like I said, even though it's mostly the onion sites are using the cryptocurrencies now, like I said, there's some mainstream retailers now that are starting to accept the Bitcoin. And like I said, if the rumor is true about Amazon, you'll see cryptocurrencies really skyrocket in value if Amazon does decide to start accepting some sort of a cryptocurrency. But by being able to get on there and sell information, to these, like I said, the big niche that I have found there, and like I said, it's a huge niche, is those survivalists and the doomsday preppers. You can go on there and sell them, info products. You can sell them info products on how to create 50 gallons of clean water a day. That would be a great info product that you could sell to a doomsday prepper. They would buy that from you all day long if you could tell them how to make 50 gallons of clean water every day. But finding niches like that over on the Onion sites, the Onion network, you guys could really rack up with that. And like I said, right now the Bitcoin is right over, just right at $600 per coin. So, with no investment at all, you could really rack up pretty good if you could catch on to something that would really sell. And then there is another method. I didn't have time to write this up, and I just found out about this Friday afternoon. But there is actually a website that's like Associated Press. And I don't know if you guys remember Associated Press. In fact, they're still in existence. But Associated Press, you could write articles for them, and based on the quality and the topic, the article, Associated Press would pay you for the article. And they would take and in turn sell that article to newspapers and magazines that would publish it. Well, there's a website that will actually buy content from you that Onion site owners go and buy the content from them to put on their website, and they will pay you in Bitcoin for that, for writing those articles. Now, I'll provide you guys a link to that as well that tells you how to get started with that. That is an easy way if you can write any at all, to get started with accepting digital cryptocurrencies. But again, like I said, there's multiple ways if you just put your thinking cap on, try to think outside the box a little bit. There's lots of ways you could capitalize on these Onion sites and selling products and services, but the big thing is you got to be able to accept cryptocurrency because they all deal in cryptocurrency. I've not seen a site yet that would actually take a PayPal payment. Yeah, Roy, I would advise anybody that would wants to check into this to really stand back and take a good look at it first. Don't jump into anything that you don't understand. Um, like I said, I'll eventually get to the point where I can write this all up and make it, some sort of a step by step for you guys. But I wouldn't jump into anything that you don't understand because uh, cryptocurrencies, like I said, are really, if you were to compare them anything, it's like investing in the stock market. If you're going to invest money in the stock market, you're taking a chance that stock's going to go up or down, and it could bottom out and never come back up. So I wouldn't invest money into a cryptocurrency at all. Nothing that you couldn't afford to lose if you were to invest money. But like I said, I wouldn't recommend anybody invest money into cryptocurrency, considering the avenues that I've just showed you here where you could actually earn cryptocurrency and not have to actually lay out any cash. Bruno says there's huge information that's not on the normal web. Will you get into the information aspect that's available that's not available elsewhere? A friend of mine introduced me to it, but I didn't do anything with it. Bruno, like I said, this is something I am just, I've known about it for a long time. And those two WSOs I bought from James Brunoff, I think is how you pronounce his last name, really piqued my interest into looking into it more. And I got some time over the past weekend to look into this more, enough to be able to give you guys a good primer is what I've got so far. What I've got here, like I said, I didn't have time to write it up completely. And of course, had I been able to write it up completely, we'd never been able to finish it in this 1 hour or so, and I didn't want to keep you guys too long. But eventually I'll get to the point where I can write this all out, some sort of a step-by-step guide for you guys. But there is a lot out there, and it's one of those things where you just got to dive in there and start looking around, seeing what you can do with it. But like I said, I don't recommend anybody investing in anything or jumping into anything that you don't understand. Make sure that you understand it first before you get involved. It's fine to download the browser and go to the directory and look at some of the websites just so you get a feel for what people are doing with their sites. That's fine to do that. But before you actually get involved and participate, I do recommend you get a little more knowledge first. And I'm learning it as I go, and as I get more information, I'll pass it on to you guys. But right now, this is what I have. Kathy says, I'm interested in the info side, having been following James Brunoff, but not really done much with the cryptocurrency side. Yeah, like I said, James is the one that piqued my interest in it, and especially this last product he just came out with where he told about a market that he had found on there. And to be honest with you, Kathy, after reading James's WSO, I don't think that would ever work. I mean, these guys are a little smarter than James gives them credit for. You're not going to put up a picture up there and say, buy my info product for $100 or whatever amount he said. I don't even remember what it was now. They're a little smarter than that. I don't think it's that simple. But it did pique my interest into looking into what kind of markets were there, is why I looked into it a little further. I'd known about it for a long time, but I didn't really think about much looking into it about what kind of markets could actually be there until I read James's last WSO that like I said, that's what gave me the idea to look further into it. Roy says, sound to me like if it took you 2 years to make money with IM, do the same with these sites. Well, I don't know, Roy. It just depends on what you're trying to sell there. Like I said, if you really put on your thinking cap and started and tried to find something that you could market to those survivalists and doomsday preppers, I believe you could really make some quick money with them. In fact, Ryan Dice, that is one of the biggest niches that he's in, and he'll tell you flat out that that's one of the biggest niches he makes the most money from is the survivalists and doomsday preppers. And what he did or does is he goes to these wholesalers in China and Taiwan and places like that and buys these, I forget what they're called, they're credit card knives or something like that. In other words, it looks like a credit card, but it's actually folds out into a knife. He buys those things for like 10, 15 cents and sells them for $3 to the doomsday preppers. So, so that's the kind of thinking cap you need to put on, something like that. Look at and like I said, the example I gave you with the Altoids can, one-day survival kit, that's something that anybody can do. I mean, you see those Altoid candies at all the cash registers. You can buy those little tins and, make those things like I showed in that Instructables PDF thing. And, you could sell those things if you could just get the name out there that you're selling it. But one of the things I would do, though, once I did finally lock down something that I wanted to sell, and again, guys, info products is something that could sell there. Now, I don't think you could sell just any info product. It'd have to be something, that's fairly decent. You're not going to be able to go in there and scam people. And that is one thing that I didn't mention in the PDF when we were talking, or the presentation when we were talking about cryptocurrencies. Considering there is no monitoring or nobody controlling cryptocurrencies, it is awful easy to get scammed, and there is no asking for a refund if you did get scammed. So that's another reason why I would, if you venture outside of, one of the exchanges like Coinbase, if you're dealing directly with another person, there is a possibility, that you could lose whatever coins you're exchanging with them. Of course, dealing with somebody like Coinbase, they do have accountability there, so you're not likely to have it happen there. But if you were dealing with somebody directly, paying them a certain amount of Bitcoin for whatever they were selling, or they were buying something from you, and you could actually send the product and never get your coin, there is that possibility of that happening, since there is no controlling or nobody monitoring it or nobody to fall back to file a charge back or anything like that, because like I said, it's a currency that's only used between that group of people. Roy says, could you sell a physical product via Amazon physical? Yeah, they sell physical products all the time on there. I seen somebody selling tractors. Now, I thought that was kind of odd that somebody would sell tractors with digital cryptocurrency, but I found an Onion site where a guy sells tractors and tractor parts. And again, I think it's mainly for the people that are in the survivalist and doomsday prepper niche. Those type of people want a tractor. Yeah, it is a digital Wild West, that's for sure, Kathy. There is no law right there at all. Of course, like I said, the examples of law can step in there because they are, they're involved in it too. They're going to some of those sites and seeing what those people are doing too. So if they see any kind of, suspicious activity, I guarantee you they're going to act on it and try to trace it back the best they can. And I guarantee you they have software and hardware that can trace back anything that, we don't even know about. Tim says, I was exposed to it a year ago from a Czech guy. Many smart people on it, including anonymous group, so they say. Yeah, Tim, that's what I was saying. James in his PDF talked about how you could go on there and sell just about any info product to them people over there, and I don't believe they're that dumb that they would buy just any info product. It would have to be, a decent product, an info product, something that's really worth having that gives some real information. He gave the example of just selling anything over there, and I just don't believe that would ever happen. Tim says, I was reluctant to try and sell unless you protect yourself with proxies. One, you're talking about protecting yourself. Tim, one of the things that you'll notice, and I guess you've probably already seen it, is the browser that you have to use is a variation of Firefox, and it only accepts encrypted protocol. I mean, you can go to normal websites with it too, but they don't display right in it. It only works with the encrypted protocol. But the browser is set up to not allow any kind of JavaScript or Java code at all. And there's a lot of websites that have CGI that it won't even run. So the browser itself tries to protect you some, but anybody that's going to go to the Onion sites, the Onion network, and look at some of the Onion sites, I highly recommend you have up-to-date antivirus software installed and it be actively running. Don't turn it off. Not, I've not run into it myself, any problems with a website, but you never know. Um, like I said, you're going into the Wild West, like Kathy said there. There could be anything there, so don't go in there unprotected. Tim says check out DHgate for China wholesalers, and you can show them Wingate. I believe you're right. I felt just the same, not too protected. Yeah, like I said, make sure if you're going to install the Onion browser, make sure that you do have your antivirus installed and up to date. Like I said, I've not run into any problems yet, but you never know. The browser, like itself said, will not run any kind of JavaScript. So if you do put up an Onion site, you can't put a lot of the fancy stuff you have on websites that you see today. They're pretty much, just plain text and images. I'm not even sure that I've seen a video, to tell you the truth, so far on any of them. Um, I'll have to look into that. I don't know if I have. I don't think I've seen a video on any of those sites. I know I've not seen any WordPress sites, and they're all straight regular HTML sites. Every one I've been to, I've not seen any WordPress at all there. James tells you how to build a WordPress site for the Onion Network. What do you think about putting a recipe site up? A recipe site would be great, Roy, especially if it was unique recipes, that wasn't available anywhere else, like some, family secret recipes, maybe your mother, your grandmother, or people, passed down for years. Those sites would do great. That's a good idea, Roy. I hadn't thought about that. Tim says on the dark net. I don't remember reading that in his PDF. Maybe he did and I just glossed over that part, but I don't remember reading anything about installing WordPress and using that as your Onion site. But maybe he did say that. Moonshine site, yeah. I would guarantee you, Thomas, there probably is some people trafficking moonshine on those Onion sites. I wouldn't doubt it a bit. I found, and just, I wasn't looking for this, guys, but I found a lot of places selling marijuana. A lot of them selling that. Most sites are built upon Linux, but he shows how to build using WordPress based stuff. You must have got the OTO or something, because in the PDF I had, he didn't say anything about setting up a WordPress site. I mean, maybe I missed it, but if he talked about that, I don't see how I could have missed all that. Did you get an OTO from him? Okay. I didn't get the OTO. All I just bought was the main product itself. So maybe he does talk about setting up a WordPress, but I've not run across any. I've not seen any WordPress sites at all on the Onion Network. They've all just been regular, straight HTML sites. Now, I have run across a couple of auction sites, and I tried to look and see what kind of auction software they're running, but I couldn't determine what kind it was. But I have seen some auction sites. Okay, well, guys, we're running a little over an hour here. Now, like I said, I don't want to keep you guys too long. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. And like I said, this is a totally controversial thing that not many people will talk about at all. I'll do my best here. I'll get the replay up for you guys within the next 24 hours of what I have here. But I'll do my best over the next few days or week or so as I get time to flesh this out some more to give you guys some more info on it. And plus, like I said, I'm still discovering a lot of this myself too. The one, like I said, I discovered that one niche I know would do well there if you could just find the products that you could sell to them. I found a lot of those sites over there, people dealing survivalists and doomsday preppers. So I know that would work for you guys. But like I said, I'll get this replay up for you guys probably within the next 24 hours. And I'll give you what I have now. I'll actually include some links that I wasn't able to give you tonight, and you'll be able to experiment with it and look into it and check it out and see what you think for yourself. Again, though, I want to advise you to go into it with caution. Don't jump into anything you don't understand. Just go in there looking around now, and like I said, if you run across something you don't want to see, just click the browser and go back, go to, click the close button, because you're going to find stuff that you don't want to see. I ran into it myself. It's there. Like I said, it's uncontrolled and unmonitored. They can do whatever they want on those sites, so you're going to see a lot of things, that may be offensive to you and unethical. So be aware that that stuff is out there. Just like I gave the example before, we know porn is out there. We choose not to go look at it. Well, most of us do, but some people want to go see that, but I don't. But it's there, so if you do run across it and you don't want to see it, hit the back button and go back to where you came from if you do run across that. Don, yeah, well, I am recording this, and as far as I know, it looks like everything's going okay so far, so there should be a recording of this available tomorrow. Tim says, lots of undesirable stuff. I wanted to buy some stuff cheap. Yeah, I found some stuff on there that I wanted to buy too, but I don't have any digital currency to work with, so I couldn't buy any of it. I'm going to have to work my plan here and find some things to sell on there so I can start working in the digital currency, because like I said in the very beginning, I don't encourage anybody to invest in a digital currency right now. If you were to invest in one, the Bitcoin would be the one I'd invest in, but it is very expensive. Like I said, they're right at $600 a coin now, so it's not cheap to get into if you're going to buy your way into it. I would look for, like I said, an avenue like I gave you here to try to sell something to these people that are on the Onion Network to try to get your cryptocurrencies built up that way instead of investing real cash into it, because it's like investing in the stock market. I mean, you could pay $600 for a Bitcoin today, and then tomorrow it's only worth 100. So that's why I wouldn't recommend it to anybody to do that. I would much rather work my way into it, and then if it does turn out to blossom and be worth something, which I really firmly believe that it will be. It may be a few years down the road, but I really believe that the Bitcoin is going to take off and be the cryptocurrency of choice here in the next few years. Yeah, Elizabeth, if you have a teenage son and you see him on the Onion Network, you probably want to find out why he's there. There's some reason why he's there. Yeah, it's like futures trading, exactly, Tim. Like I said, if you invest money into it, it's like investing in the stock market. You're hoping that it's going to go up, but it could go down and it could bottom out and not be worth anything. So, like I said, I wouldn't advise anybody to invest any real money into it. Given that I've given you guys some ideas on how to get started here, I would go that route before I'd invest any money. Kathy says there are ways to get Dogecoin for free and then exchange them for Bitcoin, but it may take a while to accumulate. Yeah, Kathy, and that's something I wanted to put into this presentation, but I didn't have time to. There are these places on the internet, they're called faucets, that you can go, and it's basically like going to one of the traffic exchanges where you click to view websites and you get credit so that you can put your website on there. It's kind of like that, except that they pay you in those. I think it's the Dogecoin is the most popular one I've seen that does that, but it takes so long for it to amount to anything that it's not worth your time. I read one guy's blog where he did that for a solid week. Spent, I don't remember how many hours a day. It was either 2 or 4 hours a day going to those faucet sites and clicking those advertising links to view those sites to get those cryptocurrency coins that they would give him. And at the end of the week, he only made 30-some cents. So, even though, there are free ways of getting those coins, I mean, I wouldn't work 2 to 4 hours a day for a solid week for 30 cents. This is, that's unproductive time. But anyway, with that said, guys, unless we have some other questions, let's go ahead and call it a night. I want to thank you guys for coming tonight. I apologize for being late. Like I said, I had to put that one slide in there. I was advised to put that one slide in before I gave his presentation tonight, just to cover myself and not let you guys think that I was endorsing any of this at all. But I hope this was interesting to you, and I hope it gave you a good primer on what's available. Like I said, the key takeaway here from this, guys, is the cryptocurrencies. There is a movement going towards cryptocurrencies, and you guys need to be looking into it and how you can get involved in it. And it's really looking like the Bitcoin's going to be the one, guys. It's 2009 to 2014 now. It's been 5 years. Bitcoin is making the news. It's been uh, starting to be accepted. So give it another 5 years, and I guarantee you, you're going to see something big out of the Bitcoin. And again, like I said, I don't recommend investing in it. Find a way, just like I showed you. I gave you an idea here tonight. Find a way to get involved in it that doesn't cost you anything. Cost you some time. Um, Anytime you can invest and get some cryptocurrency out that you can exchange later, I think it would be for the betterment. Because like I said, I have a feeling that there's going to be a big movement towards cryptocurrency here in the next few years. But anyway, I want to thank you guys for coming tonight. I'll have the replay up available for you guys within the next 24 hours. I'll put some more links on there, so give you guys some links on how to get started with this if you want to check into it. Um, if you have any on the replay form, there'll actually be a form on there where you can send me questions. Again, I apologize for not being able to get to last week's questions, but last week's was real busy for me, guys. I just didn't have time to collaborate all of the questions. I'll try to get to those next week. I did go through them, and there wasn't none that were pressing, so don't think I skipped out on them altogether. I did go through them. I just didn't have time to collect them for tonight's call. But like I said, the form will be on the bottom of the replay for you to submit your questions for next week. Thanks for coming again tonight, guys. I appreciate your loyalty and coming to these webinars. This is what I do these for, is for you guys. Have a great night, everybody, and we'll see you next week.